Usually, from what I have seen, in the last few years, well, in the last decade, when a television series reaches its third season, there are only two ways of how the show is gonna get received by an audience. Either the show will be at its peak and will be one of the greatest seasons of the show, or it will be a total mess that will shift the entire future story or will suddenly close abruptly its run. There is not a middle road most of the time, either is good or is totally bad. Rarely, however, there are some shows that might surprise you, and I wonder if this show might be one of those which might do this thing. The third season of Tulsa King continues Dwight's story in his consolidation of his own criminal empire in Tulsa. He is approached to enter in the booze business and expand his legitimate assets, but he is forced to face a ruthless adversary who might do anything to succeed and have all the alcoholic business from Tulsa for himself. Also, the feds are starting to approach Dwight regarding some shady interests, and a past and important crime boss from Dwight's previous life shows up and demands his own share, even though he didn't contribute anything to Dwight's actual empire. There was a little struggle to summarize the season, but yeah, there are a lot of stories that happen. However, what I think about this is that, compared with the previous two seasons, I feel the showrunners tried to tell a lot of stories in this chapter of the series. If I might be able to make a comparison, the first season had some plot lines that felt natural and logical in order to establish the story. There were like 3 main plots, but the story felt easy to follow. The second season kept the same formula in a way, with a small change in which a main plot of the first season became like a side story, while a new one was established as the more important one. Not a bad idea and still quite easy to follow the plot. This season, however, tries to deal with quite a lot of stories. The conflict of the season with the new villain, the Fed's plotline that shows up out of nowhere, the bigger, more important New York crime boss who starts to shake the things quite a lot in Dwight's works, the political campaign of a former villain who now is just a side character who tries to be relevant once more, the work relationship between Dwight and Bevilacqua, which is stable yet not totally trustful. There are way too many plots. It's still an upside to all those ideas because they are enlarging the stories of the previous seasons and make relevant certain moments and creates new suspenseful or interesting plots that could become more important in the future, with a chance to bring more backstory or create new villains. But presenting them all at once, I feel like the showrunners tried to tell quite a lot in such a short time. For a second or two while I watched this season, I felt that I might lose interest from time to time, and I wanted for the episode to end quickly due to the way too many things that happen during an episode. But there are some spectacular things that brought my interest back and made me focus on the story for a little more time. One of those things that might hold the viewer's interest, in my opinion, is the main villain of the season, Jeremiah Dunmire, played by Robert Patrick. His savagery and evil deeds are represented so well that bring a breath of fresh air to the whole dynamic of the series. Most of the characters are now tough guys ready to jump into the action, but this guy is totally insane. If you're gonna do something that will please him, everything will be just fine, but if you do something that he doesn't, yeah, you're done. If you pay close attention to the whole dynamic of the series, you might say that Jeremiah is the main engine of the season. The way he acts imposes his authority and scares everyone around him, including his son, who is totally traumatized and tries everything to get his father's approval, to no avail, makes Jeremiah a dangerous character. Maybe it is his misfortune or not, but Robert Patrick had some similar characters in recent years, like White Dragon in the Peacemaker series or Shane Langston in the second season of Reacher. So this type of portrayal starts to come as a natural thing for him, to play those easy to hate characters. He plays them very well, and if you see him on the screen, or in a story in which he is a villain, you can totally be sure you are in for a ride. Now, if we watch the returning characters, there are some good features for some of them, most notably Mitch and Bodhi. The way the producers made Bodhi being more serious and driven for a short time by revenge made his character unpredictable in my opinion. You didn't know if he has the guts to cross a certain line or not. While Mitch, yeah, he always looked like a cool dude that was thrown in a bad situation and was forced to learn how to survive, and this background connection of his from the past gives this little sensation that, yeah, he went through a lot and lost a lot, but who knows, he might get it back again. The other characters, even if they evolved compared with the other seasons, they feel stalled. Sure, they start to do some things and you see them dealing with the plan and other businesses and acquisitions, but I didn't feel way too much from them. Overall, I have to balance most of the good things towards the villains of the season, Dunmire and Quiet Ray, the other big bad who comes after Dwight. The agent, Musso, I'm sorry, but I didn't get his purpose yet. He was supposed to be an agent who is connected with Dwight's past, and his build-up was quite mysterious and went with this idea of the feds quite far, when in fact he needed Dwight's help during a mission and knew Dwight will handle it because, well, because he is Dwight. I truly hope they will develop this part of the story much better in the future seasons. Quiet Ray. Now this guy looks dangerous, and the way he is presented and his build-up is made, you truly must get ready for something dangerous in the near future. He looks the type of gangster that he is like a final boss, or at least an extremely dangerous character that you truly don't want him as an enemy. As for the smaller villain of the season, Dexter Deacon, the hitman Dwight is supposed to deal with because of Musso, is something regarding him that puts fear in the ones who see him. He is cold, calculated, meticulous. He is truly terrifying, almost, if not already, pathological. If Jeremiah is unhinged and crazy and reacts instantly to certain moments, this guy takes his time. He wants to know every aspect of everything to get the job done. He thinks he is smart enough with his methods of creating death and chaos. Apparently he didn't know who he was dealing with because at the end of the season, well, Dwight dealt with him in his own style and made Dexter pay for everything. Dexter is the type of character who is dangerous enough to make a federal agent get help from a criminal, but fool enough to make Dwight his target and enemy. There is a poetic and ironic characterization here with this guy. Coming back to the good guy's side, I think this is the proper place to talk about the special appearance of one and only Samuel L. Jackson as Russell Lee Washington, an ally of Dwight, who is, from what it can be totally seen as, an honorable assassin and who wants to live a quiet and normal life. Jackson's character was, in a way, a shift in the dynamic of the season and made the moments more enjoyable, and it is said he showed only for 2 episodes. But from what I have read, there is a plan for a spin-off with Russell as a main character, with his future activities in New Orleans. So if those episodes were like a backdoor spin-off for his show, I think we can expect something special pretty soon, and who knows, maybe more appearances in Stallone's gangster story. So from what I read from my notes, I can safely say that this season works well because of the villains. This is not a bad thing, it's just different. But a viewer might take this context as bad and monotone because the main characters don't change that much, but you know, a great character is defined by its actions, its portrayal and its dynamics with the others. Still, in this case, the villains were still better than the main characters. That's it. As I talked a bit earlier, there are some inconsistencies with the story of the season. I mentioned that, yes, there are a lot of plots made to present so many ideas, so many moments that are interesting or might be interesting in a future season. However, due to the huge multitude of plots, there are some plot holes that are left unanswered. We saw Bevilacqua getting arrested by Agent Musso because he tried to find out what is wrong with Dwight, but at the end of the season he is still arrested by Musso? We know Dwight realized Musso had something to do with it, but this situation does not confirm Bevilacqua's suspicions somehow that Dwight is a rat? Another thing, Quiet Ray found out the attack from the hotel restaurant was not orchestrated by Dwight, or he finds out what happened with his assassins that he sent after Dwight and Russell. What is his next move? Another thing that I felt was dealt way too fast was Armand's fate. From time to time you see Dwight and his guys trying to find out where Armand is. possibly to deal with him or help him or to keep an eye on him, but this end was just put there to end that plotline. I understand the evolution of the story and I appreciate the way the producers tried to deal and fix some old plots that felt unanswered, but the way they did it, it felt rushed. Probably they did this thing because in the next chapter of the series there are gonna be some incredible consequences to all those plot points. Or they just forgot. But what I feel about this season, thinking all those things, is maybe this season is a transitional one. Maybe they wanted to get the field ready for something that might be quite impactful. They got the field for a political storyline, they got the field for a war between the gangs, once more, they got the field ready for a conflict with the feds or between Bevilacqua and Dwight. All those ideas seem important. The question now is, which one is gonna be the first one, because from the way they made this season, I'm afraid they will try to deal with all of them in one season, which I hope it does not happen. Each plot has an interesting theme to explore and can be seen as a new challenge for Dwight and his allies, so which storyline is gonna be more important than the other? Because if you pay attention to the end of the series, that happy end could represent a proper ending for the show, but with all those new plots, I don't think so. Let's see what the producers will want to do in the next season. Until then, we are sure there are some things that will return, and those things will bring trouble in no time. The cinematographic style of this season is the same as the previous ones, obviously. To have continuity in style and cinematic concept is quite important for a TV series. It determines its success if the show is quite appealing for the viewer or not. However, the cinematic style also determines the rhythm and the vibe of the season. In this case, however, even though the series is filmed in the same style and tries to keep its vibe in a constant way, it can clearly be felt that the third season is not as dynamic as the previous ones. From what I have seen on the internet, there are some people who might think the show is slow-paced and it feels boring and monotonous compared with the first two parts of the series. Well, they are not wrong entirely. Yes, the show has lost its dynamic feeling and it feels slow-paced, but I think this is because the style of the story has changed a bit. After watching the first episode, I felt that the show reminded me about another series called Boardwalk Empire. Probably due to its theme, I thought of that series for a bit, and that is because that series is another type of story. The booze gangster stories are widely connected with films that represent the Prohibition era, so those types of movies or series have a certain style that connects the viewer to the 1930s American cinema. Tulsa King could not change its story so much that it could be set in a Prohibition era Tulsa environment, but it adapted what it could to modern times, and it did it well. Sure, the story has a much slower rhythm than the previous ones, but that is all because of the style of gangster movies presented in this season, and where they took inspiration from. If the show would have been more dynamic, probably some certain themes would have not been properly presented, or certain characters would not have been properly shown in a way for the viewer to truly hate them, but it worked. I started to think about the other seasons and, as I said in their videos, each season has a certain feeling. If the first season was a modern gangster show that previewed some drama and conflict between Dwight and its former crime family, with a presentation of Dwight's fresh ascension as the gangster king of Tulsa, and the second season was more of an action-packed story with a possible war between Dwight's allies with other families, the third one tries to bring the story to another level, to focus more on the threat that could be, and to develop the characters in a different way, and with what it was presented, I think they did a good job. The producers were not afraid to tap in different styles of gangster stories into their show. The first season had a storyline involving bikers, the second season explored the grass business, so trying a new idea and style of storytelling feels somehow logical for a creator who wants to expand and enrich its creation. Also, let's not forget the final episode in which everything is changed to an Expendables style of action for a couple of minutes, where the good guys win and save Dwight's sister, so the whole Prohibition-inspired feeling is totally changed in an instant, which is made without an issue. I have to give the producers that. Even though the whole season felt different, you are reminded what show you watch when that scene starts. After all, this is a story involving Sylvester Stallone. To conclude my thoughts regarding this, yes, the third season feels more slow-paced compared with the first 2 seasons, that were different and more dynamic than this one, but the story required this change in rhythm due to its themes and characters. And as I previously said, the villains of the seasons were the hidden gems that drove the story further and made this chapter interesting. And seeing how dangerous those villains are, there was a good decision to slow down the rhythm a bit in order to make them a real threat. Sometimes you don't need a crazy rhythm to have an interesting story. It's okay to have a slower rhythm when it is necessary. At the end of the day, after watching the whole third season of Tulsa King and starting to understand its story and characters, there are some things that, if I should have been the producer, yeah, maybe I would have done differently. There are some things that could have been made better or could have condensed more storylines into a bigger one, or would make an idea much more interesting as it was presented than it was done, but overall, is it a weak season compared with its previous chapters? That depends on the viewer. To me, I can see and understand why people would think this season is different from the other ones, but I also see the pattern the producers try to do with their concepts. If there is something that I did not appreciate, it was this style of storytelling. Some plotlines are kinda wasted, other plots are more important than others. What I want to say is, this season felt like a preparation for something that might come into the future. Even though there were conflict and action moments in this season, I feel the producers are preparing the table for something big. The calm before the storm, as someone would say. The happy ending of the season might be taken as an end of the whole story, but there are way too many ideas left that have to be concluded, so I expect the 4th chapter to see what is gonna happen. I truly hope to not make another example of the Fed's story from this season, where it was hinted as an incredible shift into the whole picture and it was just a side element all along. Until the 4th season shows up, Tulsa King leaves its viewers with a small desire for something more. Maybe this was the plan from the beginning, but until everything is confirmed, we only can speculate and dream for what may come next.